Good morning, everyone, and I welcome you to the session of Experiential Learning Lifestyles. I understand in this session, many of my old students, old colleagues, my project staff, some staff, parents, some of the distinguished people are there. I can see you in my data matrix. You all are welcome. This is a great time to see you. Experiential learning lifestyles, concise it, make it as short. However, when I had been doing in past this module of workshop on experiential learning, it's a 2 days module, 8 hours a day. It's very long and we cannot cope up with it. So I shall be winding up most probably in 40 minutes or so. Friends, I'm talking about knowledge. And anything knowledge. We all. Now, what is knowledge? Containment of knowledge. We all are born ignorant. The universe is full of knowledge. Input of knowledge is through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. But you have to be physically there. Unless you are physically there, boundary, your skin has the boundary. There are various modes of knowledge, books, senior people, teachers, parents, social leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, cooperate enlightening the candle of ignorance in our heart and mind. We are in the world of hurry. But do you know, knowledge has the procedure has to be adapted, contained, and then mastered before you execute them. Because knowledge is more. Knowledge, to me, to change the ignorance into fact is called knowledge. Ignorance into fact. Now, what is a fact? Fact is the time-tested knowledge, ideas, text, and you remain profitable. Today, in the race, what is happening? There's a very popular Sanskrit verse, Vidya Dayati Patrata Patratva Dharmapati Dhanada Dharmastha Sukham. I shall explain it. Vidya Dadati bene. Why do we gain knowledge? Do we gain knowledge to become an engineer, a doctor, a teacher, a chartered accountant, a rocket scientist? Why do you get the knowledge? Knowledge doesn't aim to provide you anything of this sort. Knowledge, vidya dadati vinayam. Knowledge is responsible to give you humility, politeness. And politeness is the vessel in which you contain vinaya dadati patram. You become vessel. When you gain knowledge, you become vessel. Patratva dharma panti dhana dharmastha sukham. It means when you have a vessel, you can contain any knowledge of the universe. Knowledge is free, my friends. Knowledge is absolutely free. In this presentations, I shall be talking and try to consolidate knowledge, experiential based knowledge, and how do we adapt it to our lifestyle, and who and what helps, and some difficulties which you face. So I shall be beginning with the slides now. The experiential learning is a process. In short, we call it EXL. Experiential learning, EXL, is the process involving learning through experience, learning through reflection, learning by doing, experimental education, experimental learning, learning context. All these things do not require any formal education. You don't have to visit a college or big university. It's all within you. Learning through experience, learning through reflection, learning by doing, experimental education, experimental learning, and learning context. I have drawn over here a KOLB'S learning cycle. Kolb was a famous educationist, and he had a mastery on the child psychology and how the knowledge is transmitted among the students. Now there is the eyes over here. You can see the eye over here. This eye is responsible for reflective observations. Reflective observations. That means whatever your eyes see is not correct. Whatever your ears listen is not correct. Whatever your nasal cavities smell is always not correct. What are they doing? They are having reflective observations. Now, reflective observation is subject to verification. How do we do it? Then it's an abstract conceptualization. What is abstract? Abstract means quality, action, and state of an object, place, or person is not known. It's called abstract. I repeat it. When the quality, action, and state of a place, person, or thing is not defined, is called abstract. Now you will have to conceptualize that abstract. Do they exist? And then lighten yourself. Be positive, lighten yourself. When you lighten yourself, the active experimentation takes place. What do you want to do? For example, a windmill is running here. For example, a person is running here. When you do it all by yourself, you enhance concrete experience. If you want others to do, you have second-hand information and you cannot believe it unless you verify it all by yourself. Kolb talks of concrete experience, reflective observations, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentations. Now, what does experiential learning involve? It talks of doing, feeling, watching, and thinking. Thinking is very important. How do you think? You should know it. Thinking requires skill. Thinking is a skill. How do you think? Like, for example, when you have to boil milk, you have to think of milk first or the fire first. Or if you light fire, you have to think of matchbox first, or first you will open the gas cylinder. This very idealistic question that thinking, then watch, feel, and then do it, whatever you are doing it. Concrete experience, the learner actively experiments with a concept. Then reflective observations, the learner consciously reflects back on that experience. Then abstract conceptualization we talk, the learner attempts to generalize a model of what is experienced. And active experimentation, the learner applies the model to a new experiment. And this cycle is continuous. Concrete experience, then reflective observations, then abstract conceptualization, active experimentations. Do you know, this explains all inventions in science is made after they were the fiction. People thought in Carl Lewis' book, it says about a person went inside the earth. Now, going inside the earth, He talked of magnetic properties of the earth inside the core, which was discovered about 100 years later. Similarly, people thought of flying in the sky. It was a fiction. Later, we could reach till Mars, or we are trying to go beyond the solar system. The process must start with concrete experience, reflective observations, abstract conceptualization, active experimentation, and concrete experience. Now, when you observe ways to process ideas, now clinical observation, I certainly don't mean medical interference. Clinical observation means the diagnostic observations. You observe something, then you have to diagnose it. How do you diagnose? Diagnosis in teaching field, we have 5 W's and 1 how. If you do 5 W's to everything and 1 how, you will be quite critical and you will be clinical, you will be observing. Many of your problems will be sorted out. They are why, what, whom, whose, whom, and how. Whatever you do, whatever you write, whatever you observe, consider to this why, what, when, whose, whom, and how. Clinical observations, mathematical model, simulations, hypothesis. Clinical observations, mathematical model, simulations, hypothesis, experiments or clinical studies, experimental design, and new knowledge. That means whenever you get a knowledge has to be systematized. When you have a knowledge, how will you create knowledge? Now suppose I wanted to do this show today. The ideas have to be conceived. Then how will I do it? Who will I do it for? When should we do it? People, I can't do it in the morning. People will be busy at home. I can't do it late at night. You have to simulate things. And then simulations. Before I appeared in front of you, I certainly worked out what will I say and how will I say. Who will listen to it? What are the outcomes of this presentation? Later on, while talking about it, you will experience that how useful was the slide number 4. Model cycling. When you teach, which comes first, I don't know. Which comes first, I don't know. Because they all go side by side. Explore, explain, evaluate, engage and elicit. When you elaborate, explain, evaluate, again elaborate. Not after break. The strength of knowledge is passed on other generations. It should be remembered. Explore, explain, evaluate, engage, and elaborate. What are these 5 factors about? It talks about our hand, heart. Knowledge requires hand, head, and heart. Always, your heart should never, so should your hand. It should always work. And so, your brain should never stop you from growing. Knowledge is ever evolving. Even when you are sleeping, knowledge is there. Your mind is growing. You are talking, you are not doing anything. Every time your mind is evolving. This evolution of mind should always be taken into this 5 format: elaborate, engage, elicit, explain, explore. These are called 5 E learning cycles. And what I told you, hand, heart, and head, they are the 3H modeling. Now, exchange of knowledge will take to experience human experience. Continual, I told you that knowledge is ever evolving. Continue, now everything which you think is not knowledge, because your ignorance is changing to fact. But if that fact is not of utility, if the fact is destructive, then of course that is a knowledge but not accepted as a knowledge. So knowledge requires guidance. So knowledge at this point here, then monitoring data have to be. Child comes to the classroom, at the end of the day, works, continual learning, knowledge learning system. Now, a child doesn't know what is what. Then what happens? Transfer and refinement. The knowledge of a child is transferred and then it is refined. How do you refine it? You do evaluation, you do homework, you do class test, you talk to the parents, you talk to the child. This transfer and refinement is always a process of exchanging of knowledge. Training set, text documents, images, etc. Now, here is a problem. When a child learns, we learn or we gain knowledge, we have three types of imparting knowledge. Unsupervised knowledge, semi-supervised knowledge, supervised knowledge. Now, do you know, in our Indian system or Indian social structure, we have a highly supervised curriculum. It leaves very little time for a child to learn or a learner to learn. They cannot evolve. They remain a parrot. Semi-supervised and unsupervised. Altogether, if you not supervise them, then what will happen? Children become altogether free and they are not capable to think for themselves. However, knowledge will be evolved, but the knowledge as per the curriculum will not be evolved. So we have to be balancing between unsupervised knowledge, semi-supervised knowledge, and supervised knowledge. Then the feature extractor. In these features, machine learning algorithm and clustering. Machine learning algorithm is different about each child. We have to be careful when we make an algorithm about a child. To be very simple, when a parent comes, how is my child doing? Teacher says abruptly, not doing so well. Earlier he was very nice. Now, no, he's not doing. None of the negative remarks is the right algorithm. The child had been doing. I remember a teacher giving 0 marks in English to a child. Now I asked the teacher, did the child know how to read? Did the child know how to write? Did the child know how to speak? If at all he knew something, then how can the child get 0? Now these are the basic questions, fundamental questions. That means the setting of questions is also draw a concern. We need to work hard about it. Then monitoring data, feature extractor, machine learned model like smart classes, computers, then expected level. Now teachers in our system, not in our school, everywhere in our country, we are not focusing after I have left the class after 40 minutes, what did I leave behind? You have to set a target that after 40 minutes, I used effective timing of 25 minutes, and after 25 minutes, I have left this kind of knowledge to the child, and the child will know them. This is very important. Similarly, a child should know that they have come for 6 hours or 8 hours to school. When they have returned from school, what did they carry with them? It's a discipline. It's a discipline. Self-directed learning is a type of instructional strategy. Self-directed learning is a type of instructional strategy where students take charge of their learning process. This lesson will discuss components benefiting and teaching strategies of self-directed. Self-directed learning is a type of instructional strategy where students take charge of their learning process. This lesson will discuss components, benefits, and teaching strategies of self-directed. This allows students to choose based on their personal interest and strength. Now see, each child has a personal strength. They must evolve, they must be identified. The talent of a child must be identified, and identification of a child is a concern of a teacher. Now suppose a child says, "Ma'am, today in my science class, may I not do science?" Now teacher cannot seclude that child. No, everybody is doing science, you should also be doing it. The scientific principles of education says that immediately the teacher will represent the idea of a child to the full class. Hey, Mr. John today doesn't want to study. Do you all agree to it? And the class may say, yes, ma'am. Then what do we do? Tell us a story. Why not say a story of Michael Faraday? Why not tell us a story of Benjamin Franklin? Why not say a story from Jules Verne? We learn in an interactive manner. You cannot, a teacher is not the boss of the class. A teacher is a good student of the class who is senior to them. We have to be part of the teachers. Similarly, a principal is a part of the faculty. You cannot seclude. Teaching is something where knowledge is being transacted. A very pious system of virtue is being translated into actions. We need to be very, very careful when we talk about it. Self-directed lessons. What do you want to do? A child says, I wish to do a poetry. Nothing wrong in it. Who will write a poetry? No one says me. Then the teacher may start, because you wanted to do poetry, but the children are either shy or they don't know, or they don't know how to begin. Why don't you start? You say, look at the sky casted with cloud. Others say, yes, ma'am, black clouds floating around. Others say, will the sea be dried when the cycle will evaporate? Others say, yes, ma'am, when the water droplets will fall. Others say, shower of rain will bathe us with blessings. This is how a poetry is complete. Always ask, you do not force. Now sometimes we are not focused. We go to class, we ask them, what did we do yesterday? It's not the children to tell you, what did you do yesterday? It's we to remember, what did we do yesterday? And where do we go from? These are all experiential learning I am talking of. Experiential learning. Sometimes let a child touch something very cold and tell everyone to explain their personal experience. Sometimes let them touch something hot. Sometimes take them to the school garden and let them smell the beautiful flowers from the garden without plucking them. Ask them to write. Believe me, CBSE curriculum addresses all these things. Only problem is this, we are not following how to teach. There is a curriculum we have circulated in our library and all, how to teach a lesson. How many periods will require to teach a lesson? We are not following. What we are doing, we take a book, we get into it, we explain the chapter, do question answer, and switch over to next chapter. What did you miss? You missed the learning outcome. And this knowledge is absolutely not translating anything into experience. Any knowledge which is not translated into experience is, of course, no knowledge. Personal factors like personality and social skills impact a student's success and ability to learn. This lesson outlines factors that affect a student learning and success, details how they impact personality patterns. You can see these little fellows, how they are looking at. Personality pattern. Each child has a personality pattern. Unless you do little paperwork, you are likely to forget them. You should be knowing each child's name. You don't have to ask, what is your name? Address them with the first name. Let the teacher feel little involved. Let the students also feel a bit involved. You go and wish them on their birthdays. You should remember their birthdays. Go and tell them, happy birthday, son. Similarly, they will reciprocate to you. They will also tell you, happy birthday, mom. If they are sad, approach them, ask them if you could do something for them. This is absolutely important, personality patterns. Now, all children are not alike. We say child is very naughty, very nasty. Child cannot be nasty, he can be naughty. If a child is naughty, why it is naughty? Because child in English dictionary means restless. One who cannot be at one place. And it's very important that personality patterns define. If you have a register, we have in our school registers made for each class, for each child, a ledger is being maintained. But unless we write with certain kind of motivations, we maintain that register with a motive to improve a child rather than the rituals of administrative work, it will not help. Teacher's personality, individual's child's personality, everyone has a personality, take care of it and enthuse children that they also follow you and you grow into a good ambience and a bona fide, personified person. Educators know the students are most successful when parents and caregivers are involved in their child's education. Educators know the students are most successful when parents and caregivers are involved in their child's education. How can teachers and administrators engage parents? This lesson presents ways to factors affecting teaching, common issues of the class, dealing with difficult bosses and parents. My friend, if you are facing all these problems from the children, now look at the body language. Look at the body language. Now, if you are facing these problems, then you are not the only one. The world is like this. 1,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, Mahabharata was fought. Even that time, situation was the same. All children were not alike. All were not alike. All bosses were not alike. Knowledge should be flowing. This is what is called knowledge. You should be able to tackle a child who is not coping with you. You should be able to address the common issues. Do not rush. Here, I remember I once announced in a staff meeting that any teacher having problem, please come to me with the children. And believe me, from next day, I had nothing else to do than to address the child and the student in my office. Then what did you do? If somebody else is addressing your problem, then you lost your knack in the class. You go to the higher authorities, they are there to support you, they are there to help you, but you have to take charge of the situation. Nowadays, dealing with difficult bosses and parents, believe me, 40 students of the class are not the problem. Maybe 2 students will be underperformer, they will create problem for you. Maybe out of 40, there will be 1 or 2 parents whom you say difficult, or some bosses can be difficult. You know, actually these are the difficult people who train you for life. Every time you do something wrong, they are there to point it. And unless you are pointed, how will you improve? When India was set free, Gandhi was in the march and he became father of the nation. Now question is, who is more important? The struggle of independence or the Gandhi? Had there been no struggle, it would have been known. Had India not been enslaved, Gandhi would have been not known. On many others. It's a complementary. It's a complementary. As important was the independence struggle, so important was Gandhiji. As important is a difficult boss, so important are you. You have to handle such parents, students, and bosses. They will be there. Wherever you go, whatever you do, they will be there. Again, I will tell you, if you have doubt in your mind, use 5 W's, 1 how, and head, hand, and heart. Experiential ambience, I shall be demonstrating few subjects over here. Experimental ambience and lifestyle. We come to the last of this experiential learning. What is it about? Experience, ambience and lifestyle. Music, astronomy, not in the syllabus. Music, astronomy, book reading, art and craft, poetry, photography, library, cooking, yoga and meditation, budgeting, accounting and banking, spiritual inculcation, social and environmental services, expressions, observations, silent arts, etc. also to be done. Question arises, who will teach me all this? In our country, my friends, in our country, there are teachers and the schools where these are not in the curriculum, but children are being taught. Each teacher must take an assignment of internship, life skill. Unless you have done it, life is not complete, knowledge is not complete. Now, I shall be talking to you now in experiential learning, the plenty of things happen. How do you experience learning? I'll tell you, I was writing a book. I went to a class and the children were reading a storybook. I took the storybook, I rather snatched the storybook from a child and I told them that you have to focus on what I am teaching you. When I took the storybook from a child, I started reading few pages from there. Every time a child was asking the mom, how did I do it? The mom answered, my son has become this big, this big. Every time she said, this big. Now, I came back and I started wondering why the mother was showing this big. Now, what I did, I brought a child from the class and I measured his middle finger to middle finger, this side. And then I measured his height from his foot to the head, and it counted same. I wrote this fact in my book of science, which I wrote. This is called experiential learning. Who taught me? A child. What did I do? I experimented, elaborated, conceived, used my head, hand, and heart, and elaborated, and then finally conceptualize it. You try it at home. You take a scale, you stretch your two arms, measure your fingers like this, and then measure like this. Your height will be same. Experiential learning, a teacher of science teaching measurement in the class. Teaching measurement in the class. Now, a teacher gave a scale. Now, teacher said, this is a scale, and minimum it can measure 1 millimeter, and maximum it can measure some 30 centimeter. 30 centimeter. Chapter finished. Now, at the end of the chapter, there's a question. What is the thickness of 1 page of a book? What is the thickness of 1 page of a book? Now, child is jabbed. Now, let this scale be utilized for 40 minutes in the class. Measure everything that comes around you. The smallest out of smallest and biggest out of biggest. Here, this book has 400 pages. Now, you measure its height. Whatever height you got, divide it with 400, you get the number of thickness of 1 page. Experiential learning. This is what is called experiential learning. I shall tell you, measurement was not discovered. Still people measured. I shall tell you one thing, a very short fable rather. In Greece, the king was very upset because he found his people were fighting over the piece of land. But there was no system of measuring land. What he did? He formulated something called gaj. What we call gaj in Hindi, he called it yard. Now, what is yard? Yard is the distance between your nose and the middle finger. Nose to the middle finger. Now, you measure it with a thread. It's around 3 feet. It's around 3 feet. From Greece, your body. This is the body. I don't need any measuring tools. Here. This thumb. This thumb. Now, you measure this from the first knuckle to the tip of your thumb. You measure it at home. You will always find it 2.5 centimeter. On a scale, today also, mathematically and scientifically, 1 inch is 2.5 centimeter. You measure it. Experiential learning. Now, I have a system of 2.5 centimeter, that means 1 inch. Now, God was an engineer who made us. The width of your mouth is 2 inch. 1 and 2, measure it. In Greek, this thumb is called inus, I-N-U-S, inus. The word inch comes from inus. Now, length of your nose is again 2 inus, measure it, 2 inus. Circumference of your ear is 2 inus, measure it. Foot, King Louis XIV in Paris. France was ruled by King Louis XIV. Paris city was to be beautified. Till today, the world's most beautiful city is Paris. When Paris was beautified, engineers wanted to see the majesty, but the majesty was busy playing violin. King Louis XIV was fond of playing violin. He did not meet them. Therefore, One day, engineers barged into his parlor, and the king shouted, "What brings you here?" And he stamped his foot like this. Engineers returned, but His Majesty's order had to be followed. So the length of his 1 foot was taken as 1 foot. Length of 1 foot was taken as 1 foot. Now, 1 foot was 12 times of the inus. Inus is 1 inch. So 1 foot has 12 inches. Experiential learning. This is called experiential learning. I also have candle. Now, I light this candle. I light this candle. Now candle is gone up. I light this candle. Now this candle is glowing. Now this is yellow. I blew it. Now yellow, to experience the heat, you don't have to put your finger into this yellow. This is the invisible zone. Here, maximum heat I can feel here. Experiential learning. Here. That means invisible zone has complete burning. When there is a complete burning, there is no residual gas. This is yellow, incomplete burning. There is suspended carbon particles reflecting light, which is of yellow color. Experiential learning. Now, I play with it. I extinguish it by blowing. Lot of smoke. Now again I light this candle. Now with this candle I do this. I do this. Candle gone off. Now again I light this candle. I take a glass of water and then I dip it into it. Candle extinguishes. I gave you 3 experiences. I blew it, candle switches to burning. I shaked it, it stopped burning. And finally, I dipped it into the glass of water and it ceases burning. Now, experiential learning. Experiential learning means, do you derive that a candle can be stopped from burning by blowing from your mouth, by dipping it into water, or by shaking it like this, or by covering it with a glass like this? The 4 issues are there. When I blew it, lot of smoke you saw. When I blew it, as much as pressure I applied to blow it, with the same pressure, the smoke came towards me. That was carbon monoxide. This carbon monoxide will further go to my body and it will prevent hemoglobin to absorb oxygen. Second was, I was doing this. It kept glowing for some time and ceased to burn. When it was being done like this, then the oxygen from all around was gushing towards it. It burned for some time and then ceased to burn. When I dipped it into water, what happened? Water was colder than this and it became wet. When it became wet, its ignition temperature was further lowered or higher and it ceased to burn. We do not need a laboratory, we don't need anything. We can explain many such issues like this. Many such kind of a experiment we can issue. We can work out from home in the class. Children are asked to clap. Experiential learning. When you clap, sound comes. Why the sound comes? When you clap, there's an air over here. When you are clapping, you are allowing the air to go out. The vacuum is created. And then sound comes. There are plenty of experiential learning. You can do everywhere, you can look for the science reason. 5 W's, 1 how. 5 W's, 1 how. Hand, heart, and head should be always right. There are plenty of things. Now, experiential learning. I wish to show you a book. Da Vinci Code. There is a lateral inversion. Da Vinci Code. It is written by Dan Brown. You know, inquisition to know what is there inside the body, no one knew. Leonardo da Vinci was a great artist. In those days, there were no different fields for everyone. Artists would be different, scientists would be different, microbiologists different. It wasn't there. He was in the Vatican, and in those days, the dead bodies were kept separately. And according to Catholic religion, you are not supposed to tamper with the dead bodies. This book says he used to hide himself and cut them, the internal parts, and used to draw. Medical science got their first anatomy pictures from Leonardo da Vinci. Now, Leonardo da Vinci also developed, I am talking to you about learning experience. See, he used to write laterally inverted. Here, he used to write laterally inverted. Unless you put a plain mirror in front of it, you can't read it. Learning experience. Your hand. In Hindi, distance between your thumb tip and to the lady finger is called bitta. दो बित्ते का एक हाथ. ये देखिए, काउंट कीजिए. एक, दो बित्ते का एक हाथ. दो हाथ का एक गज. एक गज में 3 फीट. 1760, 1760 yards is equal to 1 mile. Learning experiences are plenty. Now I'll show you, I talked of astronomy. Who will do it? Music, astronomy, book reading, art, craft, poetry, these are not curriculums. Each teacher of their interest should be doing it. Your principal should be doing it. I should be doing it. Even some parents, those who are willing to contribute to it, they can also do it. Any well-wisher of the school, of not my school only, any schools and children are there, they should volunteer to it. They should be going and doing it. Now, I also do it. I'm not an astronomer. I'm not a computer engineer. I do it. I do all works of computer. I'm from a physics background. I write literature. Here, I have some book of mine. the image of my experiences. These books are written by me. All these books are written by us. See, there are around 35 books I wrote. Out of them, 7 of them must be English. I'll show you more. I'm not a religious guru. I read Vedas. I read literature, voracious literature. Astronomy. If you are interested, this is a telescope. It can go to this. It looks small, but it's very powerful. We can go to the mid sky, and deep sky can be visible through it. See, you can see deep sky through it. I play music. I am not a musician. What am I willing to say? What am I willing to say that in life is a civilized family has lifestyle. What is the lifestyle? Life is about experience, those which are not taught formally. Sometimes such education becomes your career. I said astronomy, photography, library, cooking, yoga and meditation, budgeting, accounting, banking. Have some of your pocket money. If you are a child, have your pocket money, you should budget. Saving. Think of expending. Think out of those saved money. Some charity work. Social services. Visit after having collected some money, visit and experiential learning in a school for school children can happen if we teachers get into it. We teachers have our hobbies which are lying dormant, unutilized, and we crib that we have no time. You got to have time for everything. Many people, when they come and know me or they already know me, right now I can see many of my colleagues are, no, thank you, there was a connection problem. Many they asked me, do you do all these things every day? No, every day I don't do everything. They ask me, how do you plan it? I have a timetable for myself. They ask me again, how do you frame your timetable? How do you frame your timetable? I am a principal. First I have to do my job, my official job, because I am responsible for the career and growth of children and staff. And of course, I earn my bread and butter out of it. My priority goes to that. Leftover time, I plan out. Don't you sleep? Somebody asked, don't you sleep? Yes, sometimes I sleep. I sleep very less. When do you write books? At night. Unless you contribute your valuable time, you will not be able to taste the melody of success. Success knows nothing but just success. It takes the cost out of you. Before I leave you with an observations. You can keep thinking at home later on. I have a thinking. I have a jug. I pour in some water. And then I send it to you. This water, if you get it, you can let me know and see there's a water there. and the water is not spilling out. Want to see it again? I'll show it to you again. See, I'm pouring in water into it, and then I'm asking the jug to get me water back. There's no water into it. This is what I have for you. Keep observing about it. Thank you very much for being with me. See you sometime very shortly. God bless you all. Thank you very much.